1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 14, 15, 16. 16. 17, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I've got far over 16 batteries. And if I use the JK Inverter-BMS, I cannot parallel more than 16. All 4 dip switches on 0 means the master, and all 4 dip switches on is battery number 15. So makes 16 altogether. And for a very long time I've asked Jikong if they can find a solution for this problem to parallel more than 16 batteries. Not too many people will have this problem, but maybe more than you think. Yeah, and they always said there's nothing we can do because the dip switch on the communication board is only 4-bit, and replacing this with a 5-bit or 6-bit dip switch doesn't make a big difference because the whole hardware needs to change on the BMS as well. And this is certainly something they look into for future hardware upgrades of the inverter BMS. But now for the version 19 BMS, or even downwards compatible to version 14 and 15, there's really no solution because of this restriction. Well, until now. My friends, welcome back to the Off-Grid Garage here in very sunny and very hot Australia. We've got mid of autumn and we have 35 degrees outside. It is totally crazy. Look at this. It is still in the morning. We've got 67 plus 17 amps outside. We had already some cooler weather, but this week was extremely hot again with temperatures over 30 degrees Celsius. Totally crazy. So the latest firmware for the JK Inverter-BMS was version 19.31, yeah? And let's have a quick look in the release log for this firmware. This is from end of February 2026, version 19.31, where they have fixed again some known bugs, whatever that means. Well, it is always recommended to upgrade to the latest version of the JK Inverter-BMS, so you don't have these known bugs. Yeah, so this was the latest iteration of the firmware upgrade for the JK Inverter-BMS, and back to the problem of paralleling more than 16 batteries and still having a communication to your inverter, yeah? That is the main part. So I asked JK probably a year, 1.5 years ago, because I could already see what is going to happen here in the battery and system room, that I will end up with more than 16 batteries eventually. And when I count all my batteries at the moment here, we are going to 24, 25, 26 batteries. There are probably still more coming. So we will definitely have over 16 batteries in parallel. And I definitely want to connect them all to my Victron system for communication purposes. But then recently, about 2 weeks ago, Jikong contacted me and said, Andy, we've got a solution for you. You will now be able to parallel up to 32 JK Inverter-BMSs. And as per my request, this is also downwards compatible to version 14, version 15, and here the version 19 BMS. So they made a new firmware and it's called version 19.31B, B for parallel. Something like this. So if you have a look in the release log of this firmware and go all the way down, I didn't read this before the day before yesterday, and it says the inverter BMS supports 32 battery packs. Note, thank you very much, Andy, for your continuous effort in collecting the user experience for the JK Jikong Inverter BMS from a wide range of users and feeding them back to us. And I can only thank you guys for leaving your ideas, your critics under my videos. And I'm really just the collector, the aggregator, collecting all these information and forwarding them to Jikong. And as we have seen in the past, they are able then to make a new firmware with your ideas, your requests, and change and adapt the firmware as per our needs. And I'm really, really grateful for having such a community and having such a good relationship with the chief executive programmer at Jikong, having direct access to the team, which is responsible for designing, coding, and programming the new firmware for the JK Inverter-BMS. And as you know, we have achieved a lot in the past. Yeah, and this is now the newest firmware, which they have made probably as per my request, because I was begging them, I was asking them, I was nagging them all the time for over a year now to find a solution so we can parallel more than 16 batteries, because I could already see what is going to happen here in the battery and system room, that I will end up with more than 16 batteries eventually. Yeah, we've got now counted like 25 or so, and I'm sure there will be 1 or 2 more coming. Firmware 19.31 enables the JK-BMS Inverter-BMS to support up to 32 battery packs at most. However, since the version 19 hardware dip switches only has 4 bits, this is here 4 bits, 4 dip switches, allowing for a maximum of 16 address to be set. In this new firmware here, the 19.31B, we have to abandon setting the address through the dip switches and instead use Bluetooth to set the address. Precisely because of this, the firmware will not be installed on the official factory version 19 of the Inverter-BMS, neither now nor in the future. So it is a bit, as I said, a bit of a special firmware they made for, as per my request, as per my constant request with them. But you may be surprised how many people have more than 16 batteries these days. So that's why I'm very happy I can share this special firmware with you guys as well. And it continues here. We are currently working on the development of version 22. This new version will bring significant upgrades to the Inverter-BMS of JK-BMS, including, but not limited, to support for 32 battery packs. I think they will come up with a 5 or 6-bit dip switch then. So you can actually set the address again via the dip switches and don't have to go into the Bluetooth app. And it continues here. Additionally, it has a dedicated Wi-Fi interface then and a more efficient balancing method. So in the not too distant future, we will get the version 22 of the JK Inverter-BMS. So hopefully I will be one of the first here to show you guys this new JK Inverter-BMS here, and we can explore all the features, all the functions, all the options. They talked about a new version for quite a while, but this is now the kind of official announcement basically that there will be a version 22 JK Inverter-BMS. And I'm pretty sure they have thought about the downwards compatibility to version 14, 15 and then 19. So all these BMSs still work together and can be paralleled. So worst or even best scenario is you need to get one of these new version 22 BMSs as your master, which will have all the features then, and all these slave BMSs, they can still be 14, 15 and 19. And you should be able to get most of the benefits of this new version then. But let's see what the future brings. Here, my friends, this is a very exciting upgrade to my battery collection here. And here in the top is a version 19 Inverter-BMS. This is a version 14 BMS. And then we've got 2 version 15 BMS. This new firmware 19.31B obviously is only for the version 19 BMS. So we are not able to upgrade any of the version 14 or version 15 BMS. However, we are still able to use them together, because once we upgrade the version 19 BMS, it will completely ignore the settings on these dip switches for the version 19 BMS, but it will still follow the dip switch settings on the version 14, version 15 and version 15 down here. So only the version 19 BMSs with this new firmware will stop listening to the dip switches. All the older BMSs, obviously, they still need to have the right dip switches. So what does it mean for paralleling more than 16 batteries? Well, master needs to be version 19, definitely. 19.31B, and then the next 15 batteries in your stack, they can be old batteries, version 14 and version 15 in a mix. And they will be set as dip switches as before. From battery number 17 onwards, you only can parallel version 19 BMSs, obviously, with the new firmware 31B. Because then they will ignore the dip switches and you can set number 17, number 18, number 19, number 20 inside the BMS through the Bluetooth app. And of course the order how you connect them in parallel here doesn't really matter. So you can have the master up here, and then you can have battery number 17, number 19, number 20 down there. And then your older JK BMSs, they are in a different stack somewhere over there. And this one has then number 2, number 3 and number 4. So the order of paralleling these inverter BMSs does not matter. You only need to ensure that each address of your BMS is set individually. So don't have 2 BMSs with the address number 7, for example. So they all have to have individual addresses, just like before. Okay, so let's have a look how this all works. Refreshing all my batteries here. Let's go into one of the older BMSs, like a version, this is supposed to be a version 14. Yes, it is 14.28. So this is the latest version for the version 14. And if you go into settings, and open up the advanced settings and scroll a bit further down, we can see here the device address number 2. And you can also see there is no OK button because I'm not able to change this field here at all. And this field here in the app always reflects what you have set on the dip switches. Yeah, there it is, number 2. And this is what the app shows as well. But so far we were not able to change this. So let's log into a, this is the MB56 battery here. Let's see, it's down here. Okay, let's confirm this quickly here. Yep, that is version 19.31B. And if we go into settings and advanced settings, we have here the device address number 5. Yeah, and this is what it says here on the dip switches as well. But this is just me because I'm forgetting what kind of address this one has. So I'm trying to set the dip switches the same as on the app now for these batteries. Obviously, this is only possible until 16 then, yeah. But I can go in here now and change this to, say, 27. Bang, it accepts it, yeah. So this has now the address 27, not 5 anymore. It doesn't really matter what these dip switches show here. They can be all 0, they can be in a random position. It doesn't matter. It ignores these dip switches altogether with this new firmware. So even the MB56 battery here is cabled as my slave number 4. It has address number 27. Yeah, it doesn't matter at what position in the RS45 cabling chain you put your batteries. Just ensure the address you set either with the dip switches for the older BMSs or inside the Bluetooth app is unique. You cannot have another battery with number 27 now, but the position where this number 27 sits, it doesn't matter. So basically you keep the lower addresses from 2 to 16 for your older BMSs, and all the version 19 BMSs, they go from 17 onwards up to 31. So I guess there's your option now to parallel more than 16 batteries. I mean, go and knock yourself out. And you may also ask yourself now, how does this work with the existing display then? Because the display can only show up to 16 batteries in parallel, yeah? If you want to display all 32 batteries on your display, you need to buy a new one. Well, so far I've only seen the video from Jikong where they designed this new display. But in the overview where you can see all these 16 batteries, there's now a little arrow on the side where you can scroll up and down and can see the next 16 batteries. Yeah, and because Jikong is not releasing any firmware updates for these displays, unfortunately, if you want this feature on your display, you have to buy a new one as well. It is not necessary to get the functionality of the BMS with paralleling more than 16 batteries. But if you want to visualize this through your display, you need to buy a new one. If you have a version 19 JK Inverter-BMS, which is already on 19.31, and you want to upgrade to 19.31B because you have more than 16 batteries. So if you select the right firmware, this is the 300 amp BMS, that's this one here. Go to open. It says 19.31B here, and there's no start updating button, yeah? So what you need to do is you need to do a force updating because this version is not an official release. It is not a 19.32 or even higher. And that's why it says minor version must be larger than connected device. So it does not recognize this B version as a newer version for this particular BMS. So we do a force updating. We go to Mirror's website and click on the copy button here. You go back to the JK software. We paste this in here, go to OK. And now it is flashing this new 31B firmware onto this device. So let's see if this works. So we just changed the view here, detail, log, and about. Interesting, it is not showing the 19.31B. Because now we have to go into the app, because this was battery number 11 before. As you can see, I've still got device ID 11 set here, but after this firmware update, it is not using the dip switches anymore, yeah? I just explained this to you and made the same mistake myself. That's the right battery. Let's have a look here in under about. Yeah, it tells us here 19.31B. And of course, we have to go into the settings and have to change the software address back to number 11 where it was before. See, it sits on number 15 now. I want to have number 11. Okay. And now when I go back into the computer software and leave number 11 in here and go to connect again, it should actually connect. It does. gives us the live view. See, it now listens only to the address we have set via the Bluetooth app. And if we go under About, it should tell us the 19.31B. There you go. See, that's why this special released firmware is not as straightforward as all the other firmwares for the JK Inverter-BMS. So you have to pay a bit attention what you're actually doing. Because otherwise people would get confused. They have set the dip switches correctly, but the BMS does not respond anymore because you have to set the address through the app only. So there is an extra 2 or 3 steps you have to think about. Okay, let's try another one here, number 10, which is on an older firmware as well. And I want to see if I can upgrade directly to 31B without using the force update method. So this one here sits on 19.13. Ooh, that's an old one. Okay, let's try upgrading this one to 31B directly. This is a 200 amp BMS only. That's this one. Open. No, even this one is not being recognized. Look at this, 19.13, and we are higher than 19.13, but it doesn't recognize it. So that is actually a good safety mechanism they have put in, because this unofficial special firmware should not be used unless you know exactly what you are doing and you have more than 16 batteries in parallel. So you still have to do the force update. We can use the same code, it's still valid, and it upgrades to 31B. So that is perfect actually. So whenever you upgrade to 31B, you need to do a force updating. See, I didn't know this before. Good, we are doing all this testing here. That is successful now. And now we've got the same issue again. When we connect back to this BMS, it was under address 10 with the dip switches. See, the problem now is, I think it's this with a long number here. See, the older BMSs here, where the dip switches still set the address, they've got the address as a suffix to the name, yeah? 09, 03, 08, 02. This is the dip switch setting, the physical dip switch setting. As soon as I upgrade to 31B, it does not tell me this anymore. So I've got the MB56 here, which is upgraded. It doesn't have this dash and then whatever the address is anymore. So it makes it a bit harder to identify your batteries. You have to change the name then in your stack, especially when you have more than 16 batteries. So I think it could be this with the number. Let's see if this one is on 31B. Yeah, it is. Okay, we need to set this one back to number 10. And it sits on, here, address number 15. It also sits on 15, okay. Number 10, go to OK. And then we should be able to connect with the device ID number 10. Yes, there it is. It is back under number 10, and it has the 19.31B. Okay, camera has just turned off because the battery is empty, but that's fine. All right, let's move on. What I'm completely unaware of at this stage is how does this B firmware works with future updates? Do we always get now 2 versions, like version 19.21 and the version 19.21B? Or what I thought is maybe we don't get any further updates from Jikong because the version 22 of their Inverter-BMS is close to be released. This 19.31 here is basically, that's the end of the line. Because quite frankly, as you have seen in the last couple of updates, there's not much movement anymore. It is mostly bug fixes, a few improvements here and there with the CAN protocol, but overall the BMS just works and may not need that many updates anymore in the future. I'll ask Jikong and let you know. And guys, it is only really necessary to upgrade to this 19.31B if you have more than 16 batteries in parallel. I know at least 5 people with 16 batteries, so there's now an option with this new firmware upgrade to parallel more than 16. For everyone else having less than 16 batteries in parallel, don't upgrade to this firmware. It doesn't do anything else than the official 19.31. There's no benefit for you to upgrade to 19.31B, so don't do it. Okay, my friends, also, thank you very much for your support. More videos are coming soon. If you are new here, subscribe, it is free. Leave a nice and beautiful comment down there. If you enjoy these videos, drop me a like. And until the next video, guys, when we have a look at the JK Inverter-BMS, like 10 of these BMSs in parallel. How safe are these BMSs actually when you parallel them and also connect them to the inverter through the communication ports? which is very, very important. Guys, until then, you stay charged, stay safe, and thanks again for watching. See you then. Bye-bye. Yeah, and here I must say thank you very much, community. Because this is all thanks to you.